All right, hello everyone. I am Renu Joshi. I am an OBGYN by profession, and we're here as SAWPNA members, and we're so thankful to Hala. She has agreed to talk to us and about physician coaching today. So Dr.
Mhm.
Hala Sabry, as we know, is the founder of this huge physician group called PMG, and the number of members is increasing as we speak. It keeps climbing up every minute, every second. We have what, 115,000 members. Did I get
Mhm.
that right? And
You
climbing,
do.
right?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Wow. So that's a fantastic number of physicians to it's really great of you to bring so many people together. And we're just lucky to have Hala as one of our SAWPNA members. SAWPNA stands for South Asian Women Physicians of North America. Hala, Dr. Sabry is an emergent
Hala. You
Hala?
could just call me Hala.
Hala is an emergency medicine physician by profession, and she is also an MBA, right?
Mhm.
So she also works as an executive in the medical field. It's with a
Mhm.
company called Doctorpedia. Is that a social media company, if I'm not mistaken?
Yeah, it's a new social media platform.
Oh,
I
cool.
apologize for the dog in the background.
It's okay. Mine might start barking in a couple minutes. Don't worry about it. But I mean, we all are huge fans of Hala Sabri, and we all really love what you started with PMG, and so many of us are PMG members and really are thankful to you for starting this whole venture and how we find answers to so many of our questions on that group, and how everybody suddenly comes together and jumps in, and all that somehow trickled down to all these little these groups that came out of PMG, which SAWPNA is one of them. And all credit goes to you for starting this in the beginning. So, without much further ado, I would love to hear your story, Hala. How did this whole physician coaching thing come into being? Can you give us
Mhm.
your story?
Sure. Before I do that though, I want to explain like why we're even having this conversation.
Sure.
So one day, Renu had posted, I don't know, was it on your personal
Yeah.
page? And she was like, I'm really sick of these physician coaches like DMing me, like, don't be my fake friend. Don't just friend me to like send me like some kind of offer. Um, and I was like appalled. And like Renu and I have been friends for a long time. And so I was like, oh my gosh, who did this to you? I will remove them from PMG because that is not okay that people solicit in that manner. And PMG is made as a sisterhood and, to answer and to give advice, but it's not there for people, to be like, pitching their business. We do have a formal way that people could do that. But we don't want our members to be poached. And she was like, no, that's not, that's not what happened. But she's like, yeah, but what is it about, people like, MLM and physician coaches and all these other people, or not even just physician coaches, but a lot of other people as well, DMing. And I was like, that's actually just really called bad business. It doesn't matter what you're selling. Like people should not be DMing you. And so that's kind of how it started. And she was like, oh, she's like, well, tell me more about, what you know about coaching. And that's kind of how it started. And she's like, hey, would you want to talk about this more publicly? And I was like, of course I will. And it puts me in a little bit of a vulnerable state because I get to share like some of what you guys maybe don't know about me in the last like 2 or 3 years. But some of the closer people to me, but do. And Renew kind of was there for some of it as well. So I just like thank her for even allowing me and encouraging me to share my story. But basically, yes, like I started PMG a couple of years ago and 6 years ago, and I started it in survival mode. I was like, uh, how can I, how can I actually, like have all these children, and how am I going to like survive this? And so, I asked a couple of the questions like, how do I get a nanny and all these things, and I got all my answers. And then the group grew. And one thing that I wasn't prepared for, it was like how to lead an online group. And the group was like I felt like I was being pulled in a lot of directions. To the point where I actually didn't want to do it anymore. I kind of got really burnt out from it. I did not get burnt out from medicine. I got burnt out from online leading and just everybody asking me to do things. I felt like I was being asked to be doing things for free. People didn't value my time, things like that. And so I just got really frustrated. And so I almost actually deleted PMG. That's actually what happened. And I had my finger on the delete button, and I was like, this is, this is probably not the right decision. I was having a lot of stress at that time. My mom was sick. I was pregnant for the third time with my second set of twins. And I just had a really, really hard year. And all I wanted to do, I thought the right answer was to give it all away. Like, forget PMG, forget any leadership role I had, forget working in medicine full time. I didn't want anything. I just wanted to retract and just be a hermit. And I wouldn't really call it depression per se. I mean, I did have a therapist. So, I was talking to someone, but they were just kind of like, just do what you love. And, all these things that were right, they were right. But I was like, I don't know how to get there. I love everything and I want to do everything. I just don't know how to organize my time. I don't know how to organize my thoughts. And that's kind of where it started. Of course, I had, a couple of different coaches reach out to me, and I was like, nope, I don't need help. And I don't need help by you. I don't need your help for sure. I'm not that bad. I'm not that worse off, say that for people who really need it. And those were the thoughts I had until a friend that was really close to me, who is a coach, kind of started just talking to me as a friend. Obviously we're friends, and kind of coaching me through a lot of the thoughts I had. And that's where I kind of started realizing, wait, hold on. I go to therapy. I know there's therapists, I know there's psychiatrists. They're very different in a lot of ways. But then there's coaching, and that's very different too. There's not one that replaces the other in any way. And I love my therapist, and I sing high praises. She's retired now, so I can't refer her to any of you, but she's amazing. But with coaching, it was a little different. I think with therapy, the difference for me was I got to lay it all out there and send all my feelings out there, talk about a lot of, the history of why I feel the way I feel and the beliefs of why I believe what I believe. It was really, really helpful. At times, sometimes my husband would have to come in and we would talk about things, especially going through infertility for a number of years. So I saw the same therapist for many years. With coaching, it's a lot different. Coaching is hey, what do you want to create and how do we get you there? So it's very different than therapy. Some therapists are very coachy, and that's great. Mine wasn't as coachy. But for me, it was that mixture that I really, really loved. And so basically I just started this work, and I started learning more about coaching. I became a client, on the down low. I didn't want anyone knowing that I was using somebody, but it's kind of ridiculous because as I was going through coaching, I was like, why am I keeping this a secret? Mm-hmm. And what I was telling Renu is the reason why I was keeping it a secret is how can I tell everyone that I'm struggling? What if, and I'm not really I'm struggling to figure out how I can do more. How can I leave more legacy? How can I do all these things? It wasn't really struggling, I'm living paycheck to paycheck, which is also a mindset and a thought. It wasn't that anymore. It was more of how do I do everything I want to do? And is this all that I'm going to have in my life? Am I going to have this hamster wheel of life where I'm going to go to the hospital, go home, go to the hospital again? I see all of my colleagues who are, 10, 15, 20 years older, and they're got to get my exit plan. I mean, that's what they're talking about. And I'm I don't know if I want a life like that where I'm not happy to go to work, just looking for a way out. It wasn't something I wanted to do. And so for me, I think if you look up the definition of midlife crisis, which is different than depression, I think that's what I was hitting, is this midlife crisis, identity crisis. Wait, how much am I a mom? How much am I a doctor? How much am I online community organizer? How much am I a wife? How do I fit all of these roles in? And what do I want to keep and what do I want to not do anymore? And so basically that's what kind of coaching helped me with. So I was a client kind of on the down low, didn't really want to tell anybody. And then I had a great idea. I was well, why don't I go to coaching school? Because then I can be a better client. I will get so much more out of all my sessions. And also I decided to start opening a consulting business. So I was consulting for a whole year, starting last year. And I thought if I went through this kind of program of how to hear people better and how to help solve problems of where they are now, where they want to go, which is basically what consulting is, then if I went to coaching school, then maybe I would be a better consultant. So for me, it was a business expense. I was let me just delve right into it. And that's what I did. So I went to coaching school to become a better consultant, and I was, and so much so that I had so much work, and I ended up getting snagged by a startup, and I have an executive role there now because I attribute all of it to coaching, because now like my mind is straight and I'm able to show up how I want to show up, and I'm really happy with my career. So going through that process, I was like, this is so amazing. This is so awesome. And I kind of did a lot more reading on like, why do women not do coaching? Why was I so like shameful of hiding it? And I realized, and I read a statistic that 40% of all executives use coaching. And I know this for sure that's probably true as well, because I've dealt with a lot of executives and they all have coaches. In fact, I worked for Facebook for the last year, and they give all of their employees 6 sessions a year with every single employee gets 6 sessions a year with a life coach. And the reason why they do that is they know that a better managed mind makes better productive employees, right? So I'm like, well, why hasn't medicine caught on to this? Like, why don't they offer this for all of the doctors and nurses and healthcare workers? I don't understand why we're so behind. But what I thought was more interesting is like, I'm saying that, but then I'm hiding that I'm doing this. Like, I haven't been honest. And why have I not been honest? Well, I don't want to be judged. There's going to be people that are going to be like, why the hell is she doing that? And then I'm brown. I'm not, South Asian. However, I think that there's a lot of overlap. And so it was like, oh my gosh, is someone going to say like, oh my gosh, Hala is weak, or like, hey, at least I don't need a coach. Like, I don't know, whatever kind of leg up that they're going to think that they're going to have. So it's all these cultural beliefs that kind of come with it. But then at one point I was like, well, okay, if I'm sitting here trying to be making my biggest mark in medicine, bringing all the women with me, and I truly kind of feel that a real leader helps other leaders become leaders and helps them make other leaders as well, like the see one, do one, teach one model that we learn in medical school. If I'm doing that, then why don't I share this with other women? And how are we ever supposed to build equity and really work together if the men have a resource that that we're not using, that's open? So for me, I decided to become a little bit more open, and actually just texting with Renu, like, that's exactly what happened. She's like, well, would you want to share your story? I'm like, I don't know, I guess. I mean, if people want to hear it. And so what my goal of today is to tell you what coaching is, what it isn't, my advice on how to find a best coach. And because I mean, there's not going to be one coach for everybody. And I don't know, Renu, is there anything else that we were going to go over today? I don't know if there was anything else that we were going to go over.
Different kinds of coaching
Oh yeah,
that are available,
yeah,
and the time commitment required.
yes. Okay, so I think I went over some of the questions on, okay, what is coaching? So coaching is basically a way of working with somebody, either that they're an accountability partner or they're somebody that's kind of objective in your life. They're not your friend. They're not there to like pat you on the back. They're not there to yell at you. They're basically someone that's going to help you get from point A to point B. And there's lots of ways to get to from point A to point B. And you might be going like, why do I need someone like that? Maybe you don't. But if you have something that you haven't accomplished yet and it's been on your wish list for a long time, then you probably do need a coach. Like, because that's exactly where I was at. Like, oh, I function so well. Like, why would I need a coach? Well, now I just function better. So I'm kind of surprised like how successful I was without that kind of help. And so now I'm super excited what more I can do. So that's what kind of working with a coach looks like, who it's just really voluntary if people want to work with a coach. Let's see, what are the other questions, Renu? I don't have them up. I think it was.
So you already, how has coaching helped you as a client? You already answered that. Different kinds of coaching.
Yeah. So all coaches will have usually a niche, meaning something that they, specialize in, just like physicians, like, I'm emergency medicine and Renu is OBGYN. So, you guys all have your specialties. And so coaches will actually kind of niche down. That's what they call it. And so what they try to do is, focus on one group of people. And usually they focus on a group that they have like personal experience with. And the reason for that is sometimes when you're talking to someone and you're trying to coach them through things, like for example, when I coach physicians, this is a very common thing that comes up. It's like, well, I'm really unhappy with my job. And I say, okay, well, why are you still there? And they go, well, I work for a company that gives me benefits. And I'm like, okay. And so do you think that you can't get another job with benefits? And it's like, well, the benefits are really good. Well, what is it? Well, it's healthcare. Okay, well, how much is it if you purchase it on your own? Like, they don't even know, and it's like that fear of like, and I understand it because I've been there. It's that fear of the unknown. I think it's the fear of the lack of stability. And there's a lot that goes with it. So usually like coaching physicians tend to like understand thoughts that they may not really know that are right beneath the surface. So that's what's helpful. So like people who have infertility, dealing with a coach who has experience with infertility, or coaches a lot of people that have infertility, tend to pick up on trends very often. And so that's why like having a niche is important, I think, in some ways, but not necessarily. There's some people that are just general life coaches. And I don't say that's what they focus on, is just general life coaching. And that's completely okay. So I have multiple coaches. So some are physicians. One is a physician actually, and one of them is not. So like, I'm not saying that you should only like do physician coaches, or definitely don't do a physician coach. Just choose whoever is right for you. And there's a reason why each one of those people are right for me. So yeah. So, okay. The other thing I think you were going to ask me is like, what does it take to be a coach? Okay. So this is like the mind-blowing answer. Nothing. So like, you don't have to have formal training. It's not like medicine where I'm going to like show you credentials of some sort. I don't have like a work badge. I don't have like, I mean, I do have like a diploma, but it really means nothing because it's not a regulated field. And I think that's where physicians have a hard time with it. It's like, well, I want to go to someone credentialed. And it's like, well, yeah, sure. Go to whoever you want, as long as they help you get from point A to point B. I don't care what their credentials are, So for me, like, it's just more of like, how has the coach performed before? Do I know someone who's gone to her or him? So there's different schools of thought. There's coaching that really focus on like the model for cognitive behavioral therapy of like, your thoughts create your feelings create your actions create your results. There's great podcasts like the Brooke Castillo podcast. It's called the Life Coach School podcast. If you guys want to listen to that, she's great. And there's also other schools of thought that are more like kind of like Tony Robbins. Tony Robbins is a really big life coach, and he's very like action based, like take massive action. He's all into like the mind body, like dancing, movement, muscle memory. And I know that as doctors we're like, that's kind of woo, but it works for a lot of people. So there's that kind of style. And honestly, you don't know what kind of style will work with you or not until you try it. So I think that's kind of where it gets a little bit frustrating, because, we're used to kind of just going like, hey, like, where'd you graduate from? Do you have residency? Where are you credentialed? So it's not like that. So, but I will tell you that every coach I've had, even if I haven't kept them, I think that they were there in my life for a reason. And I think they were perfect for me at that time. And I like having different kinds of school of thought because they just, I guess, dare me to grow bigger. So for me, it's been really great. What are the other questions, Renu? I'm going to look back. Oh, let's see. Are there different types of coaching? How does one become a coach? So like I mentioned, it's not regulated. I actually went to a coaching school. And the reason for that is I just wanted to learn more from someone who teaches other people how to become coaches. And it was a year-long program, which is kind of rare for coaching. Some coaching programs are like, a month, 6 weeks, whatever it may be. And I love that it was a whole year of continuity of somebody watching you and like kind of critiquing you, saying, hey, like, you're not being really objective or whatever it may be. So for me, I did a year-long program, but I'm not saying that people who don't are not good coaches. I think that they're good ones that do it, and there's good ones that don't, or bad ones that do that program. It's just more of like what's right for you. Another question that you guys had was, can you tell us a success story? So my niche, like I mentioned, people have niches. So a lot of people pick niches like, weight loss and I don't know, like there's a charting coach on like how to chart faster and more complete and more, efficient. So there's different kind of niches. And for me, I really just concentrate on women who are in male dominated professions. So not just doctors, but ones that are really kind of wanting to create legacy, like kind of where I was at, like that whole, like, I'm just really unsatisfied right now with how my life is. I do see it as a possibility to become satisfied. I just don't know how to get there. And so for me, like, I love working with that population because I feel like having just a little bit of support, just like what I had, has yielded so much that I've done. And I want to give other people that option. I don't coach full time. So it's not, so some people do full-time stuff. I don't, because like I said, I'm an executive in a social media company right now. But I love helping other women do that. And so everybody has like kind of different niches. And so a success story that I have is I had I have a client who's amazing, and she came to me with a lot of different concerns. And one of them was like, I don't have time. Hala, I don't have time. I want to change my job. Like, I still want to stay as a doctor, and I have these ideas of what I want to do. She had like 2 or 3 ideas, but I just don't have time to even invest in that. I don't even have time to invest in researching about it. You know, I've been kind of like thinking about this for about 4 years, and I just don't have the time. Like, I'm waiting until the kids get older. You know, my husband's practice went up and down, this and that, whatever. But like, I just don't have the time. Well, literally, like, after working with her for 2 weeks, like, she literally created 7.5 hours in her weekday schedule that she still maintains. And that 7.5 hours is just for herself. Like,
Wow.
she goes, yeah, walking in the morning, she exercises, she has like all this routine in the morning that's amazing, just off of like switching the thought of I don't have time to like, how can I create time? And then that was a little bit tricky because she was like, no, I cannot not do this. Like, the kids, they have to have this in the morning, or, you know, whatever it may be, like all these thoughts that we have that we think are true, not so much. And so it was just more of her like kind of thinking like, well, wait, maybe what Hala is saying is true. Like, maybe I can reword this or rethink this. And so she was able to create so much time. And I think when I calculated it out, it was like 400 hours in a year or something like that. So I was like, my gosh, like, she just created so much time for herself. I've had people build businesses that they've thought about for a long time and just didn't do it because they were scared for a lot of reasons. I've had, so many wins. I've had women going through infertility. This is before I was like really focusing on just like legacy, but I've had women, you know, going through infertility, and just kind of helping them through the thoughts of that, of just how to digest even what the doctors are saying to her, and how to not hate herself through that, you know. And I think for me, I totally understood that because I've gone through, you know, a lot of IVF. So, I mean, tons of success stories, you know, that my clients have, and not just, and I'm my own success story. Like, I mean, it's not just about the clients, it's about me. And there's so many other people. And if you have, you worked with a coach and you feel comfortable talking about your success, like, please share, because there's no reason why anybody needs to live in a way that they feel like there's no resource for them to help them. Another question that I was going to be asked, Renu said, what is the time commitment required for something like this as a client? It depends really what the work you want to be putting into it. Personally, I leave some time. I actually make a date with myself to do, like, you know, kind of professional self-help. So whether that's listening to podcasts, that's reading a book, or, you know, working with my coach. So for me, like, I've created and I've dedicated about 3 hours a week for myself, because that's how much I want to do, at least 3 hours of work on myself. And that's the right answer for me. But honestly, some of my clients, they show up every week or every other week for the hour that we meet. And they do some journaling throughout the week, and they choose what they want to put into it. But obviously, whatever you put into it is what you're going to get out of it. And so sometimes initially it's a little bit of a transition, because if you're going into it going, I don't have time, then you could see that it takes some work to unravel some of those thoughts for you to make time. But now I just let you guys know what my schedule's like, just to be transparent. I work Monday through Thursday from about 8 or 8:30 in the morning to 5 p.m. And then on Fridays, I don't, I block off my entire calendar and I do content creation, and basically some of the projects that I have, I dedicate time to that. So I don't take any clients, I don't take any meetings, I don't take any phone calls on Fridays, and then I have every weekend off. And that's my schedule. And then when I work in the ER, because I still work sometimes, I work a few days a month, I should say that. Sometimes I'll do it in the afternoons if I am up for it, or I'll choose one weekend to work. And so for me, like I have like the perfect schedule for me. I make more money than when I was grinding and grinding and like the in the ER and like just so upset about is this all I'm going to do? Meaning I love the work I was doing online. I love supporting physicians and I love supporting patients. And I just wanted to do more of that. And I felt like the more time that I was spending at shift work and then sleeping because I was so tired of the shift work, I just couldn't do as much of that. And that was kind of not only from PMG, like I love PMG and I loved supporting physicians, but I also had, right before I made this decision, I had a job that was offered to me to work on a TV show. And when I was working on that TV show, I got to basically produce a medical TV show that was watched by over 1 million people every week. And for me, that was an amazing experience because like I've never been able to educate 1 million people in an hour ever. But I knew that if I wanted to make a change in medicine and if I wanted to make medical information more equitable and accessible to all patients, no matter if they had insurance or if they had money, that would take time and resources from me to be able to devote for that. So that's when I kind of knew that if I thought that was going to be the next generation, the next evolution of my career, that I couldn't do that full time and be a full time clinical physician. So for me, that's how I balance it for myself. And I don't believe that there's anything as balance. I think it's more like homeostasis, like there's a range and I stay within that range. So so I'm really happy and I'm just really glad that I got to share my story and answer some questions. I don't think anybody should be ever DMing anybody, but I just wanted to explain what coaching is and what it isn't from someone who's been there, thinking like there's no way in heck that I'm ever going to sign up with a coach, to coming all the way to the situation I'm at now where I'm like, coaching's amazing. Everybody should look into it. I think everybody should have access to coaching, just like every Facebook employee. And I think everybody should just, try it or be open to it. If you guys, even if you want to start with your own personal self-help without working with anybody, some of the books I recommend are, one of the books I started out reading was You Are a Badass. It's a really good self-help book. I've talked about it before on PMG, so you guys may have seen me post about it. Another book is The Power of Positive Thinking. That's another good one. And if you guys are really into legacy, it's kind of a dense book, but First Things First is a really good book. But anyways, I've read so many of these books and I can recommend so many. So if some of you guys are like, well, I'm kind of interested in this, but not to work with somebody, just work on your own. There's no pressure. There's no race. There's no right way to do anything. But I do want to demystify what it's like to work on yourself. And I'm only here today, like literally 3 years ago, if I did not do coaching, and I probably would have, I don't know, my choices were like to shut down PMG, to close it, to sell it. Somebody wanted to buy it. That's kind of sounds weird, but that's true. Or just be absent and let it run like on cruise control and just not do anything with it. And none of those sounded good to me. The fourth option I really wanted was I wanted to recommit, and I wanted to do it in a way that was okay for me. And that I felt like I was actually like making positive change. So some of the stances that we've taken that maybe some of you guys don't like, but I think that are much needed are, being anti-racist and talking about social justice and things like that. And so that's kind of my full circle. And if you guys have questions, feel free to ask me. Yeah, what is it?
It's a very nice question. What are the most common conditions for physicians that coaches can help with?
Yeah, I think like a lot of people use the word burnout. I don't know. I don't like the word burnout at all, because I think that there is like a systemic reason for burnout, like hospital administration sometimes just cause a lot of that. And some of it just has to do with like for me, like I was burnt out, but not from medicine. And even when I was burnt out, like kind of at work, it wasn't because of the administration as much. It was just like my own mind. So I think like burnout, midlife crisis kind of things, nothing clinical. Like if someone's like clinically depressed or suicidal, that is not a coach's job. Even if they're a psychiatrist and a coach, I'm pretty sure that they would be like, hey, go to psychiatry. So I haven't had to deal with that, although I do look out for it, and I usually screen anybody that works with me because I want to make sure that they don't, I mean, I'm the right resource for them. So I think, so midlife crisis, some people say like trauma, not trauma in the way that like a general, not like a generalized anxiety, but like say like you just can't get over, like you had a loss of a patient, or you got sued and you're like, I can't get over this. Like, I can't go to work again. That's a really helpful thing. Like, well, how do you want how do you want your practice to look like? How, what do you want? And kind of working in that way to get to that goal with you. Weight loss is a really good one, especially when your clients are, and I don't coach on weight loss, but when your clients are following with a physician. And that's another thing. I think physician coaches also like have that insight to be like, hey, like you need to go to your doctor, and stuff like that. So I think that that's really helpful. I've seen, relationship coaches, like relationships with your mom, relationships with your children, relationships with your significant other. There's a great coach on sex, that's Dr. Sonia Wright. She talks about, like a lot of, and again, she's like one to say like, hey, like make sure you're getting your hormones checked, like make sure that you're actually going to your doctor, and you're actually like maintaining yourself. But, she actually approaches it in such a really interesting way of, kind of like making sure that your priorities are aligned and what are your beliefs. And actually, she and I are in a class together, which is like really random. I brought her up, but both she and I, we work with women, and we ended up getting into an advanced training program on feminist coaching. And it kind of goes over a lot of these like different situations that women are in, depending on their race and their religion, and different factors, like if they're lesbian, gay, bisexual, trans, age. Some women have a lot of, issues because they are aging or they're kind of younger, on either spectrum, body image. So we're in this class kind of learning a little bit more. And I think it's helped me a lot on a lot of my clients. What they come to me with is really needing to work on their sense of value, like their self-value and self-worth. Like we can sit here all day and be like, yeah, I'm so great and I'm so wonderful. But, sometimes those creepy thoughts come in like, well, I don't know if, like, I'll give you an example. This is a personal example and it's super embarrassing, but I'm going to give you the example. So I have, been working on like my fitness and my body image and things like that, just that's kind of something that I live with. And, so one of the exercises I had was like, what would I want to eat? Like, what does the girl that looks exactly how I want myself to look, what does she eat? And one of the things I mentioned there was like red and yellow bell peppers. Okay. I love red and yellow bell peppers. And so the question to me was like, why don't you eat red and yellow bell peppers? I'm like, well, I do love them, but sometimes like when I go to the market, like they'll be like $1.79 each, right? And so, but it's like, well, what do I think bell peppers should cost? And I'm like, well, 99 cents, that's what I think they should cost. And it's like, okay, well, they're not 99 cents, they're $1.79. So now what? And I was like, well, I wait until they go on sale. And it's like, okay, well, why? If that's what you think your body deserves, why are you not spending the extra 79 cents? And this is somebody like, mind you, I run a large Facebook group. I'm an executive in a company, and I make more than enough money to pay for a bell pepper, but in my mind, it's like, well, what's too much for my body? And that's like that coaching, like, am I really valuing myself if I can't make choices like that? And so a lot of people think, oh, of course I value myself. Of course, I know my worth. But sometimes it's very obvious that there's a little bit of lack of doing that with some of the decisions that you make. And so I see that a lot. I mean, I'm just using the bell pepper example because it's my personal example and it sounds silly, but it's true. But I've seen it a lot with like, renegotiating contracts or, building boundaries, especially with partners or spouses, like, why don't you do that? Well, he makes more money than me, or whatever it may be. So, so we see it a lot in different ways. And there's a lot of there's a lot of cultural reasons why we think that too. I think being brown too, there's a lot of things that we've been grown up and thinking from our parents, like, don't be too braggy. Don't brag about what you have, don't, but then also like somehow you have to be the best anyways. Like everybody I know that's brown has graduated like first in their class. So I don't know how many schools there are that nobody graduated second. But I think that there's that as well. Like, be the best, but also be modest, and don't ever say that you're the best, but you have to be the best, and comparing to other people, like, well, look who so-and-so, look, that person's daughter is doing this, or my friend is doing this, I should do this. And it's that comparison that, that constant compare and despair. And so I've totally lived that, but I think that all of those things had stopped me from actually just doing what I wanted to do, So anyways, I thank you for letting me share my story. If there's any other questions, like, I'll take them, but literally this is just here to demystify what coaching means.
One quick last question. I know we were not going to talk about what you do particularly, but talk to us about legacy, please.
Yeah. So, so legacy is one of those words that I thought was only for the dead. Like, whenever you like look up legacy, it's like, oh, they left this big check to the university or whatever it may be. But legacy really is just like, what are you creating that's going to last longer than you? And I know most of the people listening here are brown because it's SAWPNA and or my friends probably that are on here. But I've thought about this a lot, and for those of you that know me, that I've lost both of my parents. My mom just 2 years ago, and my dad, right when I started medical school. So I think the idea of legacy is like so big for me. Like in our culture, it's very common when you're honoring your parents to do something that will live longer than them. So like, install like a water fountain. So anytime somebody is like drinking out of that water fountain, like the blessings from like that thirst, it's a very religious like idea. So if you don't subscribe to this, that's completely fine. But it's the idea that, anybody that like drinks and quenches their thirst from that water fountain, like the blessings go to my dad or my mom or whoever, like I'm doing it in the name of. And so for me, the last 5 years have been really hard for me, since I've like lost a lot. And so for me, I was like, well, mortality has been in my face the last couple of years. And also during my last pregnancy, like I literally thought I was going to die the entire time I was pregnant. I think I had like this undiagnosed preeclampsia. But for me, I was like, oh my gosh, well, when you're faced with your own mortality, whether your mom or your dad dies, somebody close to you dies, another physician mom dies, you read about it in the news, one of your patients die, or you hit a birthday and you're like, damn, I'm getting old, and I only have so much to live now. Like, and usually that happens around 40 or 50, like that's the whole idea of midlife crisis, right? And I just started thinking like, what do I want to create? Like, if I only have so many years left on this earth, like how big do I want, like of a legacy do I want to leave? And I kind of know I'm already doing that with PMG. But I think I had to restructure my brain. Like, what do I really want? And I think what I want is I want to, for lack of a better word, empower women to achieve as much legacy as they want, because I equate legacy with equity. And if you Google legacy, like people that leave legacy, if you Google that, it will be a whole bunch of men. And then if you Google women leaving legacy, like there'll be people that are like in the 1800s. Like she was like the first woman that, went to medical school or whatever it may be, right? It's not going to be anybody now. And even when you do look at it and you think like, okay, well, who's creating legacy as women? Most people will think like Oprah, Ellen, and maybe like if you had to think of a few more, like, oh, my grandma, like if you want to like, get super personal or something like that. But it's really hard to get like to say to 25 women that you're writing, but it's super easy to get to 25 men. And I want to change that. Like, I just really want to change that. And I think that the only way of doing it is really making it at the forefront of women's minds. And I was reading this article recently about, I've read so much about legacy. So like, believe me, I've like just been reading on this for like the last 2 years, but I read this article recently about legacy and why women don't create as much legacy. And it had made one line in there that said, well, women are so concerned with the day to day that they don't think further than the next day. Cause they're like, I just need to get the kids fed. Or I just need to pay this bill. I just need to make sure we get through taxes or whatever it may be. Where men, like, you know, they man spread, you know, they're like, okay, well, I'm going to do all these things. And they also get credit for like the littlest things, you know, it's like, and women don't, like, you know, like it's just so crazy, like that sexism in society. So for me personally, I want to normalize legacy. That's what I want to do. I want it to be something that, well, first of all, I want you to define what legacy is for you. Because legacy can mean a lot of things. It could be money, it could be wealth, it could be family, it could be your career. I mean, there's a lot of different aspects of legacy, and only you could define what it is. But if you don't define what it is, then you're never going to actually attain it. And then the other thing too to mention is that with legacy, you can create it and enjoy it while you're alive. Like, you don't need to create it and wait until you're dead for somebody else to enjoy it. Like, you can enjoy it now. And so for me, I think just normalizing legacy, and like, even there's like not really a lot of books written on legacy. And so even thinking about like, well, if I was to have like a 4-step, you know, if I made it concrete, like how would that look like? And so now I'm kind of working through that and trying to normalize it. But I think initially what I want to do is I want to build a community of women of all fields, of all male dominated professions, not just doctors. And if they're all working on their legacy and they can help each other work on legacy together and attain their goals, like, I think that just women are stronger together. And it's not just women that are stronger together, it's managed minds. And I'll give you an example. And you might see this on PMG or another group that you're in. If somebody posts like, yay, I paid off my student loans in full, and everyone's like, yay, yay, awesome, so awesome, right? And then it only takes a little bit before someone goes, must be nice, I have double the loans you have. Must be nice, I'm at this specialty and we don't make that much. Must be nice, I fill in the blank. And it's like, that's really interesting that that person says that. And I feel really sad that they have a thought that they'll never be able to attain, you know, a zero balance on their student loans. But I think what's different in this coaching community that I'm going to be building of women who have been coached, it's like I can actually coach them in that moment. So the number one rule of coaching is not to coach people who don't want it. Like, that's why the DMing thing like gets me so mad. Like, that's the number one rule. Like, you don't just go up to people in like the grocery store and be like, hey, you have hypothyroidism, or whatever. You know, hey, that mole looks like it's melanoma. I mean, you might do it because it's like, you know, the nice thing to do, but like, it's actually like kind of weird, right? Because you don't have an established relationship. So same thing with coaching. Like, you shouldn't be coaching people that, you know, don't ask for it. So this is why like I don't like sit there and coach on, you know, SAWPNA or PMG or anything like that, you know? So but I'd love to, like, you know, that whole compare and despair. Like, I'd love to have a community of women of all different fields. And if that came up, be like, this is so interesting. And then like kind of work through it. But they already are understanding the coaching concepts. It's not coming out of like, you know, left field. And so like my dream is, you know, just like how you said earlier, Renu, about crowdsourcing, like, you know, someone saying, hey, like I have a sick child or I have a sick patient, and someone helping and figuring out. Same thing with this kind of community. Like, if I said, hey, I really want to start this business, but I'm a little bit concerned about the legal, you know, the legal ramifications of this. What if a lawyer was in there and said, hey, I can help you with that? So whenever we're scared of something, our brain starts to think like, I don't know how to do it, or this is going to be hard. Like, those are the things that your brain will bring up. And it's like, okay, well, we can coach you on that, but we can also supply you with a resource with another woman that is just as dedicated to building her legacy as you are to yours. And then we can actually crowdsource and legacy build together. And my goal is for everybody to build legacy and graduate to, you know, an icon status, you know, and use like these big terms and, you know, just grow into them. That's what I think. I'm not scared of these big terms anymore. I think that they're completely attainable. So personally, I'm building this community. The first round is going to be starting March 8th. This is not the point of this at all, but it's going to be starting March 8th. And it's on International Women's Day. And it's going to be 8 weeks. And it's I kind of just went through the last 3 years and I was like, okay, what did I need to learn? And then I just made a course. And then we'll be doing coaching. We have guest lecturers that's going to come in. We're going to be hitting imposter syndrome hard in the first week with a woman who wrote a book. This is another good book if you guys need a place to start. The Secret Thoughts of Successful Women. That's a great book. And the author is going to be doing a workshop with us. And we have different speakers of women who's created legacy themselves to be a source of inspiration. And they remember where their starting point is and what changed for them. And we have, we just have amazing speakers coming in. So basically it's a day of coaching, or a day that we do an hour of coaching, and then a group coaching, and then another hour of the week that we do a special guest that comes in, and then, the taped, modules, kind of teaching the lessons. And then everyone's going to get to be in a community for life, and it's not a subscription service or anything like that. So once they're in, they're in. And basically they get to use each other, to kind of man spread, women spread, and, increase equity for women. And so for me, I'm really committed to this. And I just feel really strongly about it, So if anybody has any questions though, like legacy might be not like the thing for you, and that's totally okay. And if you guys ever need like a recommendation for a coach, like believe me, like I will happily help you. But please, like at least just start with your own personal journey. Because like life is too short. I don't know. That's what I think. Life is just too short to be miserable.
Hala, I just want to say hi.
We're medical school classmates. Isn't that so cool?
It is so good to see you. It's my son. He wants to say hi.
Hi. I've seen you grow up.
Huh? Say it again.
I've seen him grow up.
I know. Thank you for this talk. What a wonderful talk.
No,
I just actually transitioned into medical student coaching over this past year. So this was so I'll touch base with you offline.
Yeah, there's another amazing medical student coach named Ryan Gray. You might want to touch base with him.
Okay.
And I do coach, and I'd love to touch base with you. I coach one woman. One woman reached out to a PMG member actually, and she works as a tech at the hospital. And she was like, oh, I'm just applying. She's not a medical student yet. And she just like really kind of down on herself, like, oh, I'm never going to get in. So I actually coach her pro bono. And for me, like, it's been really, 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 I don't know, just really rewarding.
Mm-hmm.
And I just know that there's so much need in that young population. And honestly, if I had these skills then, I don't even know what would have happened.
Wow.
Yeah.
You're a rock star.
No, thanks. Yeah, no, message me and I'll share whatever resources, because I don't coach medical students, but I'd love to like figure out how we could work together. I'm also working with the National Women History Museum, and there's an opportunity to coach with them. They have a whole program for young politicians, but I think it's very similar mindset. So I'd love to bring you into that if that works out.
Amazing. I'll message you.
Yeah, no problem. Any other questions or anything? I feel like I hope I didn't bore anybody.
Oh no, that was excellent information. Thank you so much. And I really
awesome.
Thank you for talking about what you plan to do, because Hala was not going to talk about what she wants to do, and I really wanted you to do that. It is
no.
I think it is very important for us, and this is where we're different than I think men. We try to hold back. I think we should not, because every man will always use this opportunity to speak about their own venture. So I think we should always encourage each other to do so. Never hold back on it. So I'm very happy that you did talk about it.
No, thank you for even bringing it up. And I have no problem talking about it. I just don't want, I think my concern is I really just want people to hear the message of what coaching is and isn't, and not think that it's attached to an offer for something I'm offering. Because I think it's so much more important that people just understand that there's different starting points, and it may not be working with me. It may not be working with a coach at all. It might be just reading a book or listening to a podcast. It might be that. But yeah, I mean, if anything resonated that I'm doing or saying, and you want to work with me, like, I have a link on my site, drhalasabry.com. And in fact, I'm about to post on my own personal page. I was supposed to do it earlier today and never did, is that for people who sign up for my legacy course between now and Monday, get a little bit of money off of it. So we're just super excited, so I think it's going to be super amazing. I mean, and there's so many good coaches out there, you guys, like there's so many. So I just urge you, if something sounds like, you know, kind of interesting that, you know, someone's talking about, like, just look at their website, see what they're about, see if they'll get on the phone with you, see if they're right fit, and you interview them just like they're interviewing you, you know? So yeah.
We really, really appreciate this talk, Hala, taking time
No,
up on
thank you,
Friday
Renu.
evening to talk to all of us. That was big. I really
Oh,
appreciate that.
I don't work Friday, so it's fine with me.
My work schedule, I think women need to get out and start things on their own, honestly. I work 3 days a week in a private practice as opposed to the, I don't know, 80 to 120 hours that I used to put in per week at my job. I really hope everybody tends, you know, um, walks out on their own and starts something on their own. That's my hope for all the women in the future here. So thank you. I mean, the information was really helpful. We are so grateful for you to run us through all of that, because everyone hears the word coaching, but nobody knows what that really means. And thanks to all these DMs, everyone has that aversion going, oh, this is bad. I don't want anything to
No,
do.
I still think if somebody's DMing you, do not choose them. Like, they should not be DMing anybody. Like, they should be able to stand on their own,
Right.
use Facebook ads, like do the traditional marketing. I just don't think, I mean, I don't know who's DMing you, but I'm just saying, like I wouldn't hire a coach off a DM. So I would never tell you to hire a coach off of DM. But really, and I don't know, just if there's some interest, like, just be curious about it. I think the hardest thing about coaching, one thing that we didn't talk about, is like the investment, because it is a lot of money. But here's the thing, that same thing as the bell pepper. Like, what is your mind worth?
Yeah.
And then just know that there's a cost, you know? And yeah, and you know, coaching as a coach takes a lot. There's a lot of preparation. There's a lot of, it's just so different than being a doctor, and, you know, there's a lot of time and things like that. So, so different people have different rates, and they just pick whatever rates they want. It doesn't mean that they're better or they're worse.
Right.
Sometimes it has to do with like availability. Like for right now, like I'm personally fully booked. So I don't take any more one-on-one clients until May, I think. It depends on if my current clients renew. How funny, renew. So yeah, but I mean, so it depends on people's availability. And so that's why I opened up actually the group coaching, because I was like, wait a second, all my clients are getting such amazing results. Like, I could do this on a bigger scale without sacrificing quality. So it's like, how can I help the most amount of people to gain as much equity as they can. So personally, I'm really excited. I would love to see you guys in there. Renu, I'd love to see you in there.
Yeah.
If it's for you. But anyways, if you guys have any questions, like, ask me. I'm totally an open book. Yeah.
I wish you all the very best, Hala. I hope you succeed, and you what is it called? Crush the ceilings.
Yeah.
I really do. It's gonna be great. I can tell.
Yeah. No, it can't be any worse, right? It can't be any worse than what we're doing now.
Agree.
We're sitting here fighting for positions and not being creative to create our own opportunities, and that's exactly what I did. I just decided to create my own. And I think that when I think about the thought work that I took to get to that point, I'm like, wow, that's like, pretty amazing. And I want to empower everybody to be their own coach and to be able to do it on their own. So thank you for having me.
More power to you. I think you've started something great. It's gonna go really well, for sure.
Thank you, friend.
All the very best, and I know you're going to succeed. So I'm not even worried about it.
Oh no, thank you so much. No, I feel super successful, and I know that anybody that I'm going to be learning from all of them as well. So it's going to be just a really fun community. I'm really excited about it. We have just a diverse group of people that are going to be there. So anyways, yeah. So thank you.
Get to help all these women. So that's even one.
Yeah. No, it's going to be awesome.
Yeah. Anybody got any more questions here?
I don't think so.
No? Okay. I guess we can wrap it up. This was fantastic. Really very, very informative. Appreciate that, Hala. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Doing this.
Bye.
Bye.